Hello, everyone. Let me get situated here. Hold on a moment. And things are looking pretty good so far today. Looks like I'm still having a weak Wi Fi signal, um, but maybe that won't be too much of a problem. I've got very overcast, dreary weather here in Chicago this morning. And, sometimes that can affect the Wi Fi. But yeah, the signal seems to be pretty weak at the moment. We may get a better signal intermittently. Hope, 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 hope. So, and certainly, you all, as you come on, can let me know about the video quality if it's too pixelated. In fact, let me okay, so I'll add this banner for the time. Um, there we go. Let's see if someone wants to leave here. And I'll wait a few more minutes also for people to join, as today we are talking about the year 1990 in music. And it was a good year for me anyway. And so I have some really good examples of records that were released at that time that, I mean, in terms of what was going on in my life, these albums arrived at really the right moment. Um, just some other items, to kind of catch up on as people join the stream, and welcome everyone. I was it's I was anticipating, expecting to go to a concert Friday night to see Car Seat Headrest again. Um, and hello, Zep. Um, and was really excited about this. Mike from Hub Tunes was going to go with me, but then I started getting some messages from someone who was, part of the Car Seat Headrest entourage or team or whatever. Um, and hi, Ed. And learned that Will Toledo is really, really quite sick with a sort of a long COVID syndrome. And so they had to cancel their appearance at this show, which was kind of a festival. So I got notification finally. I got notified by this person who was part of the Car Seat Headrest family, so to speak, and so I knew about the cancellation, that I would eventually get a notification, and I did. And they said they were going to refund all tickets. I haven't gotten my refund yet, but we'll see. Fortunately, I do these purchases through um, PayPal or with my Amex, and so it's one of those situations where I've got some clout in recourse uh, if a vendor doesn't want to refund me for something. So, and hello, Jam Rampoldi. Nice to see, and also nice to see that my video quality is okay. Good, 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 good. And Ed Topo is here. So we got some people joining, and I'll put the link out here momentarily so we can talk about the year 1990 in music, which, as I was saying, was a very important year for me. And I'll go into more detail about that because it wasn't just, really great music being released that year. My personal circumstances were in such a case that the music that was released that year was life saving in many ways, both figuratively and literally in some respects. Hello, Vincent. Good to see you here. Welcome to the Brunch Bunch. And so we got some people joining here in the audience. This is great. So I'll open it up here with a link that, if you've got some records to show that were originally released in 1990. Key point here, a reissue, a 2015 reissue of a 1990 release, that's okay. But a 1990 reissue of an album that was released in 1960, no, that's we're talking about when the original music was released. And I've got quite a few here, and well, not quite a few, but I was really fortunate that I was able to buy many of these records at the time they were being released, or really close. I mean, some of these I may have bought in 1991, not necessarily in 1990, but they were all really, really important records for me, and really also sort of shaped the direction that my musical interests and inclinations were headed. Because largely, I mean, there was plenty of new wave, and there was the punk rock scene that I was definitely going with. That I was beginning to think that I was still kind of following, my musical tastes were still kind of following fairly traditional, 70s rock. That was really where my kind of wheelhouse was going. There was a little bit of diversion, in the late 70s and early 80s with the advent of new wave and punk. I mean, I certainly picked up a lot of records there, and it was all great, wonderful stuff. 1990, though, again, it was a pivotal year for me, not just because of the music that was being released, the music that was coming out, but also what was going on in my personal life. It just all kind of worked together in really great ways. I mean, there's a lot of bands that I don't have from 1990, and maybe somebody who has some of these records, and as I say, if you've got some records from 1990, go to your collection, dig through them right now, pull out some, and and join the chat, and we can talk about them. But there were plenty of records that were released in 1990 that, or albums that I don't have, and I probably need to get into my collection. I mean, one is oh dear, that was the wrong thing for me to click on. The Pixies Bossa Nova is one, for example. I don't have that, and that is certainly a really, really important Pixies release. And yeah, you can show CDs. That's cool. Um, we've got really the only criteria is that it needs to be material that was released in 1990. It doesn't matter when the individual CD was released for sale. It can be a reissue or whatever. The key factor is that the music was released in 1990. And I guess I could kind of start off with, as an example for a CD release, is this one here. This is the Grateful Dead Without a Net. So we've got this live recording that was released in 1990, and really, really nice recording. I was still kind of the thinking that I was going to try and get and also 45s, 12-inch singles, 7-inch singles. It's all good. But I was still of the mind for the most part that I wanted to try and get a Grateful Dead live recording on vinyl. But gradually I came to the realization that the CD releases of their live recordings was really the way to go, because all right, CD quality initially really didn't start to hugely improve until past 1990. But the original, they were getting better, and a lot of the original releases on CD, were simply, they were just slapping the analog onto CD, and then it was like super compressed, and it was a lot of them. Great albums ended up sounding like garbage because there really was no effort to accommodate the music for this new format. It started getting better in 1990 and a lot better afterwards. So this is an example where we've got some really good quality, and Grateful Dead is, that's kind of the situation that I've come to, is that I'm perfectly satisfied with getting a live recording on CD, because then I don't have to get up and flip the record as many times, and I can put, I have a CD changer, so that I can put up to 5 CDs. So I can, put both CDs from this into that changer, hit play, and then I don't have to get up again. This is really important when we're talking about dozing at the Nick, because that's like 3 CDs, I think. Shoot, it might even be 4. I'd have to, I can't remember, but yeah, that's one was, if I got dozing at the Nick, on vinyl, I'd be getting up and changing all the time, and then you'd have to, songs would get edited for the vinyl release and things like that. So the CDs definitely were the way to go, with especially with Grateful Dead live recordings. So yeah, this is a CD release, and I've got a couple other CDs of material that was released in 1990, and but I didn't pull them because I have plenty of records, to show. So I think we got a couple people who might be interested in coming up to join, and that would be very cool. One other thing I want to mention, just to catch people up with what's going on in the world of Calvinwazoo. I am getting close to putting together a video for some acquisitions I picked up when I was traveling in Kalamazoo, Michigan, a couple of weeks ago, and I will have that that's material ready shortly. Also reading this book here, Unrequited Infatuations, Stevie Van Zandt. Really, really interesting book. Talks not just about him and Southside Johnny, and the Asbury Jukes, and also Bruce Springsteen. A lot of information about Bruce Springsteen, but also his interest in um, song composition and recording. He was, he's kind of blowing his own horn, but he really was quite the arranger. Really, really interesting book to go with that. So I see we have someone here to join us. Hello, Jorgen. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah. So how's your weekend been going so far?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
That's
How's
good.
yours?
Going well. It's the U.S. Labor Day weekend, so it's a long weekend commemorating. People like to go out and have their cookouts and all that kind of thing. But the whole point of Labor Day is to remember that we unionized. We forced the unionization and forced employers to be a little more diligent in sharing the profits and bettering the working conditions. People, sometimes it's like Memorial Day here in the U.S. too. It's a big, everybody goes out for a picnic and that kind of thing. But sometimes we need to be reminded about why we have why is this holiday a holiday? So how in general was the year 1990 for you?
First of all, I'm going to say, hello, Zeb. I'm here to torture you and Christopher. Well,
He loves you. He loves you.
1990 was the year when I graduated high school and went into what we call gymnasium. And musically, I saw it as a better year than 1988 and 89. Still do. What I think is the great thing about 1990 is that it stands with one foot in the old, in the 80s. Many still did 80s sounds and so on, and the other foot in something new.
Yeah.
There were a whole lot of new dances. So it stand with one foot, one leg in each side of the decades, and that I did like because that blended so fantastic good, and it made a whole lot of much great music. And it was also the year when I started to listen definitely more and more, and I got a huge interest for soul music, even though haven't found that much soul music to show here. But what I'm going to show here is not going to be a whole lot of guitars. I can guarantee that.
Well, by soul music was really riding high, at least here in the United States for up into the 80s, but then it really did kind of start to lose steam, and R&B started to, at least in my opinion, R&B started to take this shift toward the whole boy band format kind of style, which appeals to a lot of people because good gosh, they sold a lot of records, but it wasn't the kind of soul music that really an R&B that appealed to me so much. So but I agree with you, it was definitely a year when things were shifting, and kind of the way 1977 also was a year of things shifting and neat little experiments.
I'm also going to say that it's wasn't exactly as soul was something new. I mean, I did like Janet Jackson before that. I did like stuff like that. But I remember New Year's Eve 1989, there was a show in Swedish radio called 8 Hours 80s. They played 80s music for 8 hours in the radio, combined with different radio hosts that made their summaries in different kind of short segments. And the one who broadcasted soul music in Swedish radio, he did one little essay over the 80s soul, went from one year to another, 80, 81, 82, 83, and so on. And I listened very closely, and I realized there that soul music was so great. Actually, it was a whole lot greater than I ever had imagined. And from there on, and when I first started in 1990 to listen to his show called Soul Corner in the Swedish radio P3, there I started to, for real, become a soul fan more than I have been before. So in the 90s started up a whole lot of new stuff for me.
Good. Well, yeah, there's you were at that age when, at least it happened to me as well, at that time of right after graduating high school, going to university.
I know, gymnasium.
Okay.
University, no.
Okay.
I was going 16.
Well, post-secondary, I guess we can say, going, that time of our life. I mean, there's this time when we first started listening to music, maybe around 12 or 13, that kind of shapes our, musical tastes. But then we go through another transformation around the age of 17, 18, 19, I think, when our musical tastes shift again, because we're a little more aware of adult things, and we begin to
The problem is that I normally don't transform like that. I don't discover something new and put the old thing behind me. I just add another genre to my, so that is how I got so varied big variety of genres I listen to. I don't throw the old stuff away. I continue to listen to it and add more stuff that I listen to.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And adult, I listen to jazz, 30s and 40s jazz already since 40 years back. So I was a little young already back then.
When you started to become more into the soul and R&B, did you go back also to check out the old material?
No, 70s soul I didn't start listening to until back in 2013, 14. 60s I'm still not collecting, but 70s I started listening to in 2013, 14. Back then it was 80s and then 90s soul up until 95 or so, when hip hop started to take over. I never became a hip hop fan. It was pure soul, nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, why don't you get us started here? And if you've got something, hold on a moment. I will. Oops, my mouse is acting a little wonky. I'll send the invite out, and for if anybody else is interested in joining the panel. But what do you have for us?
I think for me, there's only one way to start, with one of the best albums ever, also in the top 10 of my best albums ever. And I think that the natural thing to start is, of course, with Depeche Mode's Violator.
I still need to get that in my collection.
Yes, you do. Because this is such an amazing album. It was in a period when I felt like everything is good again. Synth pop is back again, because Depeche Mode had a very low down period when it comes to sales and so on. And with this, they were back again with another fantastic album. They didn't change all that much. It sounded pure synth music, and it had such amazing songs. And on top of this being the best, one of the best albums ever, also came Halo, the track number 4, which I consider my absolute favorite Depeche Mode song also. Now I don't know why I got blurry. And it is very smooth. It is Depeche Mode and smooth synth 90s style, and easy melodies, very easy to listen to, and at the same time very, very beautiful and very mysterious and fantastic production. So this one is definitely my favorite Depeche Mode album. It came out in 1990.
Is that an original release, original pressing?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Because I see it once in a while in some of the record shops, the reissues, but they're kind of pricey. They're like in the 35, sometimes $35 to $40 range. And I don't know. I mean, they say that, oh, they've been remastered or whatever, and I don't know
Well,
if they sound all that great.
when it comes to these albums, normal albums, they aren't that pricey in Sweden. You can find them for either some of them for $1, but at most $40, maybe 50. The thing comes when it comes to like this huge like 101 that I showed last in 1989, the live album. That one is extremely pricey though. That one
Yeah.
I've never seen for under $20 in a Swedish record store.
Yeah.
But normally normal albums from the 80s, not that expensive here.
Yeah. All right. But yes, the
Yes.
Violator
Yes,
is one
depending
that's on
on
my
what
list.
the future brings for the Depeche Mode. If they quit doing music after Andy Fletcher's death, then the prices might go up.
Okay. All right. Well, then one my first one I want to show is, I've listened, the ones that I've pulled, for today. What I try and do is I try to listen to all of them. And I was so busy this week, I tried to cram it all in last night. I couldn't. So there are a few that I will show later that I really haven't given a recent listen to. But one that I was pleasantly reminded that I am so glad that this record is in my collection is this one here, Pod by the Breeders. Just a really amazing record. The cover they do of the Beatles, "Happiness is a Warm Gun," to me it's a perfect cover in that it really, it captures the original song, but it also presents it in, hey, it's 1990. It gives it that 1990 sound and an edge to it that's a little bit dark, and it to me, really it works really, really well. And a lot of other great songs that are on this one. What's interesting about that, now this is one I did not buy in 1990 or 1991. I didn't get it until later. Now recently, and maybe it was the previous episode or the episode before that, may remember I talked about this band Slint with their debut album Tweeds. Okay, so and then Slint went on to work on the album Spiderland, which was released in 1991. But they were doing the recording and all that, in 1990. And what happened was Brian McMahon essentially had a breakdown after the recording of Spiderland, checked himself into a hospital. And so the band, this happened right after they finished recording. So the record, when it did get released, there was no tour or anything like that. So the different band people went on to do different projects. Now, the drummer, one of the founding members with Brian McMahon, Britt Walford, he went on and was the drummer on this record, while they were in that like interim period before they realized that the band was not going to get back together. And he shows up as Shannon Doughton because everybody else on the record is a woman. All right. So he didn't want his name showing up as in the credits, like as a man's name. So they picked the somewhat gender neutral name Shannon Doughton as his pseudonym to go on here. And his drumming on this record is very simple, but it's so precise. He is doing what a drummer needs to do. And he, does it really, really, really well. Cannonball is probably, or that's not the name of the album. What's the name of the album after this one that Cannonball is on? I don't remember. That's probably, I don't remember. And I was going to say that's the record everybody remembers, because of the hit Cannonball. But Pod, to me, is a really incredible record in so many ways, so many great songs, and just a really, really good sound to it as well in terms of the recording. I tried to look up on here who was, back of the house, and because it was recorded. Oh, well, the engineering was Steve Albini, which is interesting because it doesn't have, in my opinion, that traditional Steve Albini sound, the way he separates guitars and almost like he just makes guitars sound uniquely different than a lot of other engineers do. Last Splash, that's the name of the record I'm thinking of, I guess. But it does have that spatial quality that Steve Albini often brings to recording, which some people like and some people don't like. That's why Ethan Buckler ended up leaving Slint, because he didn't like the way Steve Albini engineered the record. But that's the one I'm starting off with is Pod.
I heard of the Breeders, but I haven't listened that much to them. I understand that they are a little heavier band.
Well, right. You've got Kim Deal, who was with the Pixies. So this was like her side project while they were still doing the Pixies. It wasn't like, I don't think the Pixies, at that time broke up, but it was Black Francis was doing some side projects, solo acts, and Kim Deal started going with the Breeders. All right, so what do you have up here for us?
I'm going to go with 7-inch.
Okay.
Because the album for this one is labeled 91. So, but the single came in 90. And this is a single that actually, when I heard this the first time, it knocked me down. How fantastic it was. I heard it in a Swedish radio show called Metropol, and they had a segment called Flip or Flop, where the three artists, producers, was going to judge whether their new song was going to be a hit or failure or hit charts. And they played this song. I never heard it before. I never heard of the band before. And when I heard that, from the first tone, it knocked me down. I was thinking, oh my God, I need to record it. Down with play and rec on the tape recorder. Record it, damn it. And high on my wish list for Christmas 90. And it opened a whole lot of doors for me when it comes to dance music. I'm talking about KLF, What Time Is Love. With a fantastic melody or phrase, synth phrase that goes in the back, and Ricardo da Forza's rap that was better than anything I heard in when it comes to rap. And even though it lacks of a real refrain, it was so magnificent, so fantastic. And I got this single as a Christmas present in Christmas 1990. So
wow,
still a fantastic, definitely a highlight of my career when I started to realize the beauty of the big sound of dance music.
What is the actual label on that 7-inch of any particular interest, or
Coma?
No, I mean the paper label on the 7-inch itself, or is it just a standard label?
This is a standard Coma. I have another one similar that I bought weeks ago, but with orange background instead of purple, with Moby Go. It was on the same label. Okay. So this is to be Coma Records is pretty boring and uninteresting front, but I didn't know that back then.
Okay. That probably might still make it a fairly collectible item, though. Maybe. Who
Maybe.
knows? It's weird out with 7 inches because um, I just recently picked up one by the left bank, that was like I think like $4.50 or something like that. And then you can see other 7 inch singles because of their rarity, that they're demanding prices approaching $100, which I guess
Here
sometimes
you
I'm
have
willing to pay a lot for.
Moby Gold, same looking cover.
Okay, but I'm talking about what does the actual label on the wax look like?
Oh, you mean that? It
Yeah.
doesn't look all that unusual either.
Okay.
It's pretty normal.
Yeah. Okay. But that other side was kind of cool with the you got the track listing here, and then the other side is yeah. Okay.
Nothing unusual there either when it comes to
All
cover.
right. All right. Well, the next record I got here is one that saved my life in many respects. All right. So in 1990, several things were saving my life in 1990. I was living in West Yellowstone, Montana, this tiny, resort town that's right outside of Yellowstone National Park. And it's very isolated, very, very, what's the word? I mean, when you become you're either an insider or an outsider, in terms of being a resident, because so many people come through to work seasonally, so they're not really people who live there. And I had just managed to get away from a really toxic person in my life. And then there were all these other things that were happening in my life that were putting a lot of pressure on me. It was a time of personal transformation for me, and sometimes personal transformation and growth is really difficult and hurts, and you don't like it. But this whole thing was like going on. And 120 minutes, the MTV show, 120 minutes, was a show that really helped out because it exposed me to some music. And one time I was in a store and I saw the CD. I'm going to show the album cover, but I saw this in the store and I thought, I need to get this. And when I got it home and played it, blew my mind. This was a lifesaver. Right? There's not a bad track to me on here. So, kicking off with Dirty Boots, Cool Thing is such a great song. And I'm trying to think, who was it that they brought into the rapper that they brought in to do Cool Thing again is, where the hell is his name? Chuck D. All right. So you can hear Chuck D on there. But what an assault of guitars, noise. I mean, their previous album from a couple years earlier, Daydream Nation, was pretty incredible. But the noise on this was just, to me, absolutely incredible. Mildred Pierce is another great song. And then Titanium Expose, the closer. Got Thurston Moore and Dave Shelley. Dave Shelley, is it? Or Jim Shelley? I can't. Signed this because I saw them at some presentation. But I would look at this, and I looked at the cover, and I would think, and this is, of course, taken from, I forget the original source, but I believe it might have been a film or something. I'm sure somebody in the Peanut Gallery will mention where this came from, the concept for the album cover. But it just really provided both an emotional and sort of a fantastical outlet for me. All right, Steve Shelley, right? Steve Shelley is the one who has signed that. And it just, yeah, saved my life because I was living in Montana and very remote area and really isolated from the rest of the world. And to me, this was like a lifeline from the rest of the world, and it was just
A middle hand.
yeah, it was just so important. I still play this record a lot. It's still when I listened to it last night. It gives me. They call it the riggers, when you get those shivers up and down your spine and on your back. That it almost makes you shudder a little bit with excitement. Yeah, just amazing album. That was my first album with Sonic Youth. And there are many others that I have added to my collection, but that's where it started. And it was that year in 1990. I might have bought it in 1991, but nonetheless, it was a record that came at the right time with the right content.
I heard of Sonic Youth. I heard a few songs by them. Really not been my cup of tea, but maybe I've heard too little by them.
Yeah, it's definitely if it makes sense, it's melodic noise, because they make a lot of noise with the distortion and all that with their instruments, but there is a song structure. There is, there's melody in there. There is, it's not chaos. It is very well thought out noise.
I like the sentence melodic noises. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. All right. So what do you got up for us?
John Rampoldi has been going about the record, and I felt like, okay, let's make him happy. Petra Boys
I'm slow on the take here. Yes.
Petra Boys Behavior, of course. Petra Boys here went to a bit more acoustic in Petra Boys standards, and not more ordinary pop with some synthesizers, but not totally drowned in synthesizers. And it was a beautiful album. I'm not going to say that my absolute favorite, but still a really great, a classic Petra Boys. Being boring, so hard. How can you expect to be taken seriously? Jealousy, to face the truth, and so on and so on. And really amazing album.
I'm still waiting to find a what do you call a vinyl copy of Very. I used to have that on CD, and I don't know what happened to it.
I don't know if I ever seen a vinyl copy of Very.
Probably not. It's probably one of those that if there are copies out there, they're probably bootlegs.
But I will guarantee you that when we come to 1993, you will see Very.
Yeah, I did. I had the CD, and I can't remember. I don't know what happened to it because I don't have it anymore. The whole orange case with the textured cover. And
I can spoil right now that I consider Very also one of the best albums ever, and it is fantastic. My favorite Petra Boys album.
Yeah, so it made a huge impact on me. Although you said you'll be showing it for 1993. You said.
Yeah, it was released back then.
Okay, so I didn't hear Very for the first time until I think about 1998 or 99.
then they was working on releasing the Nightlife album. So
Yeah, yeah. All right. All right. I have another one that it was another like emotional game changer for me at the time. That have really helped me get through what was going on in my life. And again, I bought it on CD, at the time. I did finally get it on vinyl. And it's such an incredible album and made such a major impact on me. And that's Jane's Addiction, Ritual de lo Habitual. Um, when I bought this, um, I am thinking that I bought it not consciously remembering if I had ever heard anything about Jane's Addiction. I might have, because of 120 minutes. Their video for Caught Stealing was like all over the place on MTV. So I picked up the rest of the record, or the entire record, but on CD. And when I started playing it, this was another one that, along with the Sonic Youth, I was playing a lot, over and over again. And at that time, I was living in a spot where I could play my music really freaking loud and not worry about, disturbing neighbors, because mostly the neighbors just didn't care, kind of, situation. There is very much this live and let live attitude in Montana. And so people really don't nose around in everybody else's business. And but yeah, God, and then the epic song 3 Days, to me, is such a beautifully put together song, beautifully orchestrated. The guitar solo work in there is really amazing, and you can tell that this is music. I don't know if they know how to write music in terms of actually writing notes down and doing the notation, but this is a song that they, everything is played intentionally, even in the part of the rock, or excuse me, the guitar solo. Because I did pick up the later reissue of the live, where they do this entire album live. I think it was released maybe within the last 5 or so years, maybe last 10 years. And while all the other musicians are just absolutely brilliant and play everything, precisely, Perry Farrell's voice doesn't have the range that he used to have, and years of hard living, that will really take away a person's voice. And so it was kind of a disappointing purchase, because everybody else sounded just as tight and as amazing on the live recording as they did on the studio recording. But Perry Farrell's voice. And some of the songs, too, are really very touching, such as Then She Did. And then the song, of course, my brother used to do that with me as well, take my hand and then make me slap myself, older brothers. But it's an interesting song, and really sort of out in front on many things. Classic. I know Nothing Shocking is supposed to be considered even better than this one. And I admit I've never listened to Nothing Shocking. This record made such an impact on me that I've not had any desire to go get Nothing Shocking. I will eventually. But man, Ritual de lo Habitual, another lifesaver of an album for me.
also another band name that I barely heard of. I heard of the name Jane's Addiction, but not listened all that much to the music.
It's I guess you could call it post-rock, post-punk. in some respects. Of course, Perry Farrell was behind the whole Lollapalooza thing, and getting that annual thing going, which would have been shortly after. I think I didn't realize the first Lollapalooza was like in 1998. I mean, I thought it was much more recent than that, and that yeah, it was bigger than I thought it was. Yeah. Okay. So what you got next there, Jorgen?
From Jane's addiction to Jorgen's addiction,
All right.
and addiction that I talked about before. I'm going to my early days as a newly in love with soul music. I talked before about that I listened to a soul program called in Swedish radio called Soul Corner, and the first band I recorded from radio from that show, and on my very first mixtape with soul music was a band that is very forgotten today, and that they had a special interview and special about, and that is the band called Family Stand. Family Stand, I think today is most known for Peter Lord, the vocalist who produced Paula Abdul Spellbound a year later. But this is street soul, you might call it. It is not rap, but it is more of a soul with some street feelings in it. And for me, who then only knew the commercial soul that was in the hit charts, it was definitely also a door opener into something new when I heard Ghetto Heaven, when I heard Twisted, and a beautiful ballad, In Summer I Fall, and Little White, Little Black Lies. I don't know, Ed. Maybe they did. Wouldn't be surprised. But this album is a really great street soul album that led me in even deeper to soul music when I heard it on radio. And I had also their second album before, and that I was disappointed because then Family Stand had transformed themselves from a great soul band to an indie pop band for some reason, and it wasn't fitting one bit. So this is the only Family Stand album you need, Chain, if you like soul.
Well, keep that in mind if I happen to see that. That does sound really, really interesting. Something I would probably like to add into my collection. All right. This band I was already a big fan of, and then they came out with this record. It is almost as strong as Diesel and Dust, but Blue Sky Mining, Midnight Oil. Now, I know, Jorgen, you have said in the past that you don't care for the lead singer's style of singing.
No.
But this is, they actually do have, I think, maybe not, because I was listening to this, it was a very political band. Their music was very politicized in many ways. And I stopped and I tried really, really hard to think, can you name a single love song that Midnight Oil has ever written? And
Beds Are Burning.
There's one song that kind of comes close, but it's not a romantic love song. And so I'm beginning to think that, they didn't do any love songs, and they were doing a lot of, which one you got there? This is Blue Sky Mining, okay, on cassette. But they're still one of my favorite bands. They were definitely in the late '80s and into the '90s one of my top bands, favorite bands that I loved at that time. Wanted to see them, and I don't know why, but I slept on the opportunity when they did that new album tour here in Chicago, and it's like they're done. They're not going to be, as I understand it, they're not going to be touring again after this. And I tried looking up. Well, maybe I'll go to Boston or someplace like that and catch their show there because I really want to. And no, I think they were already pretty much done with North America, and they're carrying their tour over to Europe and then back down to Australia. So blew my chance. But it is a really, although the song Antarctica, I, oh, it does say that. Never mind. I was going to say something I thought I misheard on the record, but I did not mishear it. I heard it correctly, at least according to the lyrics.
I'm going to admit right now that this cassette is on my culling list. So because I got this album at a period when I was trying to give Midnight Oil a chance because I love Forgotten Years. I think that is a great one. I think that the other singles, King of the Mountain and the title track, is also some of the best songs. But their best singles they released on this album. The album itself was not really my cup of tea. It was too stale for my taste. So that is why this is going to be shipped away. But and I would prefer to buy the singles when I find them. But the singles are still considered, in my taste, some of Midnight Oil's best songs on this album.
Yeah, they definitely there are songs that are great that would be great as singles. But yeah, the Forgotten Years, right? The one you mentioned, Mountains of Burma, is one of those songs that I kind of like. I think it's a pretty good song, but it's not quite doesn't quite match up the strength with some of the other songs. Antarctica has always been a song that I always found really interesting, in because they were trying to build up a movement, I think, of people to resist what was happening in the world, and I think they still try and do that, and there are still people who are trying to do that, but that type of movement doesn't have the same inertia of a snowplow that the other side has. So, all right, what do you have for us next then, Jorgen?
I'm going to back to an artist that I've showed in 1987 and 88, and I'm going to show it now while Christopher isn't here yet. Zeb wasn't that pleased with him either, but I think he can survive. So I'm taking the chance now and showing the next album by Swedish Peter Lemark. I showed his self-title in 87, and I showed one Närmare gränsen in 1988. I remember when I went in and bought the first single when it came, Mellan dig och mig, Between You and Me. And I said to the record seller that this is one of his absolute best. I said to the sellers, and he said yes, and it's also his latest. But this is an album that is maybe a little less 80s style, little more of the singer-songwriter style, a little less synthesizer-ish, maybe as in the previous ones. But it contains some really, really great, amazing songs, and most importantly, it is his sing songs and his singing style and his lyrics. And so this is called Välkommen hem, Welcome Home. Peter Lemark, my favorite singer-songwriter from Sweden.
And I am like, yeah, completely ignorant of his music.
Never heard of it.
Never heard him. And I have plenty of. I mean, I'm not put off by music that in which the vocals are, are not English. I'm not put off by that. If there's, if it's great music, then I, will listen to that, and then I'll try and pay attention to the vocals as best I can to get the gist of the story.
The problem is that for me, one important ingredient when it comes to Peter Lemark is the lyrics, and they are always in Swedish. So for my standard, if I didn't understand Swedish, I don't think that I will be considered Peter Lemark's music complete if I couldn't understand the lyrics. But still, it is fantastic production. He still has a fantastic voice. He's a great composer. So, but I enjoy his lyrics also so much that I would feel it wouldn't be complete if I didn't understand the lyrics.
And sometimes when provide English translations and you go through it, it's often a literal translation, which does not really do justice for what the person is singing. And not just in meaning, but in tempo, because you get words that absolutely you could not sing those translated words according to the melody.
Let's just say that I wouldn't recommend you listening to Peter Lemark album and have Google Translate doing the it wouldn't be right.
I have found with some records that I really, really like, and I wanted to, in songs by non-English speaking artists, that I would first try and do a literal translation of the lyrics if I could get someone to help me with. I did that with a Taiwanese singer, so I got some people to help me just get the literal translation into English, and then I listened to the song, and then I rewrote new lyrics that were close to the literal translation, but I felt thematically fit the song of what they were telling me the song was about, and also fit the meter, so that
when it comes to lyrics, it's more than just telling that what the song is about. It's also how to listen, how he manages to phrase it, how he manages to describe it with his own words. That is a lot when it comes to lyrics and composer.
Or German, or French, or Spanish.
No, but
opera comes in lots of different languages.
Yeah, and opera, you don't understand what they're singing anyway because they're singing so loud. So
hey, well, I'm kind of an opera fan, so I have a few opera recordings. They're all on. Well, actually, no, I do have some on vinyl.
I don't have anything against opera. I think I can listen to opera, but it's not really my taste because they're often so long, and I really make head or tails what it's about because of it's hard to follow the stories and so on. I like the Troubadour, Verdi's Troubadour, because it's a part of my favorite Marx Brothers movie, A Night at the Opera. But that is the only opera that I actually have.
Yeah, librettos are very important to have.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one I have is this was a 12-inch single released covering a Temptation song that was done by Was Not Was, and it's Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And so when I found this, actually this was quite recent that I found this recording. I don't have the Temptations original Papa Was a Rolling Stone, but this, and there's three mixes on here. There's the full rub on side A, and side B has the Richie Rich remix and the Richie's bass appella. But essentially, they're taking, the verses of Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and then in between, the verse breaks, then they introduce the rapping and into the song, so providing their interpretation, to the entire song. It's really well done. I really like it. And the original song itself, is good anyway. But the whole poetic nature, of the hip hop rap and that is being brought to this classic soul song, to me, they did a fantastic job of making it work and pulling it all off. And I have really, really enjoyed this. I see the Temptations' original recording of Papa Was a Rolling Stone on occasion, but man, it's one of those songs. It's where people played the hell out of it, and basically the condition of the vinyl is it's trashed and noisy, so it's hard to find a really good one. So
I like some of Was Not Was. I like that they have a way to make their songs unusual, so yet so groovy and very fun. They do stuff that very few does. Like when they invited Ozzy Osbourne and Kim Basinger doing a duet together in Shake Your Head, and the total funkiness in Walk the Dinosaur and so on. So I like some of the Was Not Was stuff. I think they're a cool band, even though a cool band, nothing more, nothing less.
See, now this is my first connection with Was Not Was, and so based on just what you were saying, I'm definitely going to be looking for other releases and investigating, what they've done. So it was interesting too, because Was Not Was is the name. Oh, excuse me. No, it was just Was. Was the name of a book written by a gay author in the 90s, I think, and which was sort of a what do you call it? It was sort of like a fictional memoir of someone going back home to his roots in the Midwest and Kansas after being diagnosed with AIDS. Yeah, that's just Was as opposed to Was Not Was. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to go pull the book.
Here in this case, it is actually David wasn't Don Was. So that they're not real names, but the stage names is David and Don Was. So that is why Don Was Not Was.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, then that brings you up next.
Yes. Cassette this time. Complete. Yes, that is correct. Don Was is not neither CEO or Blue Note. Cassette complete with Nostalgia, Heart Brigade, with a song that back then I considered one of my absolute favorite songs. All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, a song that I listened to a gazillion times during the summer. And I bought this album during when we at the high school had was on a school trip to Copenhagen, and I went into a record store in Malmö, south of Sweden, on the way over to Denmark, and there I bought the Depeche Mode single "The Poetry of Truth," and I bought this cassette. And I remember we were going to have another stay before leaving at a kind of hotel, and I was staying with another guy, and we went through the lyrics, and that guy was reading the lyrics, and he says, "Well, Jorgen, what is this? What kind of lyrics is this? It's almost porno." I don't understand what he considered porno today when I read the lyrics, because it's nothing unusual. But it is a great rock album. Definitely one of my absolute favorite Heart albums. It is Anne and Nancy Wilson are really great here, so definitely a great one. Heart's Brigade.
Did you mention like which were there big singles off of that?
All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You. All I want to do is make love to you. The song about one night stand. Thank you for your subscription, John Rampoldi.
I'm trying to remember. I'm sure I heard it. I'm sure I heard it because I was listening
to. It was very huge back. I think it was their biggest hit in their career, actually.
Really? Oh wow! Because they did have some really huge hits here in the U.S. But that's the one I don't recall that one. All right. Next one. I remember the songs from this being all over the place. And although actually it was not the first record by this band that I bought their second album. And that was the first one that I had for a long time. And I ended up having to wait until they reissued it when they got back together. The Robinson Brothers of the Black Crowes. There are bands that are, infamous because of the sibling rivalry that occurs within the band and gets really, really intense. It happened with Jesus and Mary Chain. It happened with Oasis. There are others, I'm sure, but it also happened with the Black Crowes. But so many good songs on this. And what I really like about this album is that, all right, we're talking 1990. And what the Black Crowes did is they brought back the hard rock style of, both of bands like Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones. But then they gave it, they infused it with a new energy that, traditional, hard rock, guitar rock just really didn't have. In my opinion, for a long time. I mean, the Rolling Stones, their last great album, in my opinion, was Some Girls. They had some good stuff, but they didn't, they weren't, doing it anymore. Of course, Led Zeppelin was gone. But, they brought in, it's almost like the Black Crowes are what might have, what could have happened, the direction the music might have gone if it had rock music, if it hadn't been so splintered and kept to its soul, so to speak. Because so many hard rock bands, even the Rolling Stones, they were trying to capture the new musical styles, that were going on, and they had hits. There's no doubt about it, but Some Girls to me was the last good album, that they put out. This was so refreshing to hear this. Twice or Jealous Again, Could Have Been Blind, Hard to Handle, which was the really, really big hit. The ballad She Talks to Angels, just all really excellent stuff. The Black Crowes. And I'm really, the Robinson Brothers did manage to mend fences and come to understand each other so that they could do a tour when they did the reissue in the last couple of years. This reissue is, it doesn't say when this was, but the reissue I think came out in like 2015 or something like that. And then I think they actually did some touring again. Um, but yeah, they mended their 1990. Yeah, it just says 1990. So I can't remember when this reissue was released. Um, yes, they were, Michael. They were a breath of fresh air, um, and which is why I really gravitated toward them. The Southern Harmony Companion or whatever, that was the record that I bought, which is also another really super strong album. But it was only recently that I went and got their eponymous debut, because that just when it hit the scene, it was like, wow, it really was a breath of fresh air.
I heard of Black Crowes. I heard some songs of them, so I'm not that unfamiliar by them anyway.
Yeah, the Hard to Handle is probably the one, at least where I was. I mean, and as I was saying, I was living in Montana, so I'm talking about FM radio stations in Montana. But of course, all FM radio stations were starting to be pre in terms of what they were going to play. But Hard to Handle was definitely um, a song that was played a lot on FM radio. Yeah. Probably not, not very many. But
And they,
again,
they
they
would.
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that some may have hard to handle that.
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, the fact that it's an Otis Redding cover, but they're also this breath of fresh air that they're just injecting this new, this well, not new, but they're re-injecting a feeling that I really hadn't heard or felt in, rock music, guitar oriented rock music. I hadn't heard for a really long time. All right, so something else for us.
Now we're getting into the dance music,
All
deep in
right.
dance music, British house music, house dance music that back then was just just starting to discover. And this is an album that I bought a couple of years ago for only 10 cents, and it was amazing. I heard their main single back then, but now I heard the album and it was really great. The main single of this is the song "Street Tough," which they do with Rebel MC, and I'm talking about the duo Double Trouble. This is maybe as close as a rap album that I would have, but it still is a fantastic, great British house album with amazing beats, amazing production, and I was surprised of how good this actually was. As One is the title of the album, Double Trouble, if you like British dance music from 1990.
That is probably something I would be very interested in. Never heard of them. The only Double Trouble I know is Stevie Ray Vaughan. So
They had nothing in common, I might say
right.
that.
But I do like house music. I really do like house music.
That is correct, Michael. I do have Black Box Dreamland also, but they have a single that I have hard time listening to, and that is Right on Time.
Yeah. I have a lot of like dance mix and house music mixes on CD, so I don't have a lot, of material that is, by, individual artists. Although I do have a Paula Abdul CD that has some mixes of, um,
I can say that there will be more dance music later on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That'll be good to get some stuff on a list for me to check out. All right. So what I got here, this has still got the shrink on it because I haven't figured out yet what I'm going to do with the, the label, I think I'm going to have to, or the hype sticker, I think I'm going to have to trim around it because I don't think I'll be able to peel it off safely. But this artist, Robin Hitchcock, and the album is I. And I remember hearing Robin Hitchcock on 120 Minutes. They would do some songs, mostly from Robin Hitchcock and the Egyptians when he would record and release under that name. Didn't pay a whole lot of attention to him. And then after reading a biography and getting more into the story and the music by Syd Barrett, I came to understand that Robin Hitchcock was a major fan of Syd Barrett's songwriting, and loved the way that he commingled literature overtones and classic child stories and things like that, and mixing them into the songs that he was writing. This is primarily an acoustic album, and the songs are just again, I listened to it last night, and this was probably the first time I listened to it since I bought it. And I remember liking it, but I couldn't remember any of this. And I bought this probably in 2017 or 18 when I was on a business trip. Got the record home, played it, liked it, and I never listened to it again. And so this one I'm leaving out because I am really, really liking it. Really liking the songs on here. And I really want to familiarize myself more with that. So this is a limited edition. I don't know what that particular means, but he's got this whole pink and green motif going on, not just on the album cover, but it's also, with the, I don't know how well you can see that in the label. Oops. But you can see, the pink and green, on the label there. So Robin Hitchcock, yeah, somebody that I've kind of ignored for many years, and now I'm beginning to realize that, hey, I need to do some more investigation with that. Really like this record.
And yet another name I'm vaguely familiar with, but that's all.
Well, check them out on Spotify.
No, YouTube, because I don't use Spotify.
I don't use Spotify either. I have to look up everything on YouTube if I want to listen to something, new and investigate a band, which is sometimes a challenge because then you find out that you might not be listening to the original mix. You might be, listening to some other mix and things like that. I've been there's a Monkees record that I really want to get that has a couple different mixes out there, and I'm trying to figure out which one to get. So anyway, they're not heard much. They got a little bit. I think the most I ever heard Robin Hitchcock was probably on that MTV show 120 Minutes. I don't think I ever recall hearing them played on the radio. They didn't fit the new formats really well. I think that was kind of the problem. They weren't album rock. They weren't country. They weren't pop. And that's pretty much how radio started to divide itself. You had to fit pretty clearly into one of those categories if you were going to get played on that station. All right, Jorgen, what you have now?
Staying in UK, and but this has more of a synth popish flavor, even though it doesn't sound like the normal synth pop band, maybe. But it's a band that was kind of big in the early 90s. I'm talking about the beloved, and the beloved who most famous name is the singer John Marsh, not Johnny Mars from the Smith, but John Mars, who has a really characteristic voice, a little deep, cool, and deep voice, cool voice, laid back, and their synth pop production is also very, very laid back. They had some hits back in 88, 89, but the breakthrough came in with the song Time After Time, that are so fantastic, relaxing, and atmospheric, and really fantastic.
Was that a cover of Time After Time by
No, it
Cyndi
is not.
Lauper, or was it the?
Nothing to do with Cyndi Lauper. It is an original.
Okay.
This is the album Happiness, and also continues some really great songs. We have the song Hello, that is name dropping a whole lot of interesting, familiar names at the time. A very interesting song. Love Taking Me Higher, a really great ballad. The Sun Rising, also really great. So then I don't understand how you're supposed to read the lyrics here, but but maybe in a maybe in a certain time when you're not that sober, but I don't know. I think this is a very beautiful album, a very beautiful and at times also groovy, but very, very fantastic, well-made album.
I like that cover. I mean, I really like that cover
art. It's odd. I can say that. It's odd.
Yeah. But you're right. Sometimes with when they put in the liner notes, it's like, maybe, when I didn't need to wear trifocals, maybe I'd be able to, read that some of it, because man, sometimes everything, the print is so tiny. It was hard enough with CDs, when they would put liner notes in CDs to be able to read what was on there. But man, some of these liner notes and with new records that are coming out, I'm like, who designed this?
I picked out this because I'm going to see. I was going to read some of the names that is name dropping in Hello, and I was thinking, skip that. I can't read anything of this.
Need to get one of those big square magnifiers, that
Yeah.
my grandma used to put over her books so that she could read them.
If you have until midnight, I might be able to figure it out.
Well, this next record, the next records I'm going to show are ones that unfortunately, I didn't listen to prior to the show, so I'm probably not going to have a whole lot to say about this. But I did show this band. I think it might have been in the previous episode or the episode before that, for either 88 or 89. And that is Social Distortion. So we're talking very guitar-oriented blues, sort of with a very post-punk edge to it. I really just like everything about them. This is another band that I originally, the first time I heard anything by them was on that show, 120 Minutes. And I was so impressed with, Mike Ness and the guitar playing, and also his persona that he was playing. I love the little, I don't know if you can see, oops, let me figure out how to do this. I love this little logo of the skeleton holding the martini glass and the cigarette. I just love that.
No, I don't understand how we're supposed to use that thing. Use those things.
Yeah. The Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell is the first record that I picked up by them. And that was because of the the singles that they had from that record, and gradually over time, because I they weren't necessarily that easy to find. Um, and for example, this is a reissue from Music on Vinyl. So a lot of, in fact, most of my vinyl copies of Social Distortion. I mean, I have them on CD, but the vinyl copies I pretty much had to. The only label I saw any reissues of them was Music on Vinyl, and which I've never had any problems with the sound quality of my Music on Vinyl purchases, even though the source has always been digital. So it's just sounds good to me. I really enjoy that. So, but yeah, so I don't have a whole lot else to say about this particular record because I didn't listen to it last night. Hectic week. It was amazing that I was able to listen to as many records as I did while watching the U.S. Open and tennis. Uh, that's one of my favorite things to do. As I put the TV on, but I turn the sound off and listen to music. Because I don't want to hear all the nonsense that the people on TV say. Unless I'm watching a movie. I'm watching a movie, that's different. But watching a sporting event or other thing, I don't like listening to the commentators.
That is the biggest difference between me back in 1990 and today. Back in 1990, I had a huge interest for sports. Today, hardly anything. Athletics and skiing.
Yeah, in the 90s, I was interesting story, the late 90s and then up to the year 2001. I mean, I was a huge sports fan, particularly college basketball and college football. And I faked my way into getting the university team handbooks, the press books that they would hand out at the beginning of the season to all the sports writers. So it had all the stats of all the players, past records, the history of the team. They're really nice. And I had hundreds of these because I was watching college football and college basketball like crazy. And but then after 9/11, I was watching a cable show where there were these commentators who were younger than me. And so I'm like, all right, 2001, I'm like in my 40s, okay? I'm in my 40s. And here are these commentators in their middle to late 20s. They got a good job on CNN or whatever. And they're trying to draw a comparison to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. And they were doing a really poor job of drawing the comparison because they obviously really didn't know the history, and then they were also kind of throwing some things about Vietnam, and I'm like, I was so annoyed with one of them that I canceled my cable subscription, and I completely stopped watching cable TV for like a decade, and of course, I stopped watching sports.
You know what they know? They know how to draw attention and
Yeah,
get money
right.
for that, and of course make people react, which I guess is the most important for them.
Yeah, and so by the time I got cable TV again, and the only reason I have it is because I don't pay for it. The building I live in got wired for it, and so I get it for free. And I still love to watch sports, but now I don't know anything about the teams. I don't know who the players are, and I don't care. I just watch the game, turn the sound off, and play music.
I am actually a bit strange when it comes to sports. I like listen to older sports from the 80s or maybe early 90s and something like that. I know many of the skiers from the when I watched skiing back in late 80s. I know a whole lot of those things, but ask me about skiers from today, I have no idea.
Oh yeah, that was the same because I was a skier myself, and I got hooked on watching, alpine skiing in 1968 when Jean-Claude Killy blew the world away, at the Grenoble Games. And so, I mean, I knew all about these people, and up until about, oh, now I can't remember his name, the downhill skier for the United States, that took all the gold in, was it Salt Lake, 1984? Somewhere around. Anyway, yeah, it's like I when I see alpine skiing on the TV, I'll watch it because I love watching it. Because I love to ski. But it's again, I don't know
I
who these
I
people are. I turn the
I,
sound
I
off.
like prefer this cross country skiing,
Uh-huh.
and I think it's very very relaxing watching them in the woods going fast, and you hear the commentators little speculating, and I think it's very calming, very relaxing, with the right commentators, of course, and. And like that, so the sport itself, but the problem is it's so long. I have gone more impatient as older I've gotten to watch a 4 hour sport event. I can watch a 4 hours wrestling event, that might be, but not a skiing event for 4 hours. It's very rare that I do it these days. But I'm still like the sport and the athletes also, athletics.
Always, yeah, always an admiration for the athleticism and the intensity of training that you can tell that they devote themselves to. I just hate listening to the commentators. Well, you're up next with another record,
Yeah,
so
we're going down back again to the dance genre, out to the dance floor again, and we have from Germany a band that had their breakthrough in 1990, Snap. I would assume that you might have heard the power. I got the power. Oh, Snap is disc
I've
jockeys,
got that on the.
fronted by rapper Turbo Harris and I think Thea Austin also. I think that I remember also, along with the KLF single, this was also one that was on my wish list this year. I didn't get that then. I got this later on. But I really liked the power might not be my favorite singles, but I liked Oops Up, and I really liked the more African style in Cult of Snap, Umbai, Agomaya, Umbai. And Mary had a little boy. I had nothing to do with Christmas or anything, even though it was released back then. It is a great groovy uh, little house-ish style dance music, and Turbo Harris rap has been debated through the years, but I actually think it's pretty good for its genre. It wouldn't last as a solo, but it works for this genre, this kind of dance German dance music. So Snap World Power.
At you said Snap, and I'm going, man, I've got something by theirs, and it's on this. So the first one is Rhythm is a Dancer, as the Snap song. And then they also have The Power on here. So yeah, when you said that, I'm like, man, I got Snap. I know I do. I recognize that name.
And
This,
will I come back to Snap back in '92 when Rhythm as a Dancer came? Time will tell.
yeah, I was definitely into the house music scene of the '90s, mostly later '90s. But and when was this released? This compilation was released in 1993. So this was right after I came out, and I started going to the gay clubs, and getting into the music that were playing at the clubs that I went to in Michigan. Yes, it was a weekly pilgrimage because I still live 90 miles away from the closest club. So it was a weekly pilgrimage every weekend for myself and some friends to head down to do that. Okay. I'm on my last one here, and this is another record I wish I had the energy to stay up late last night and listen to. It's been a while since I listened to it, which is another reason I've said I like doing these shows because it gives me a reason to go back. I look up what was released in the year, check and see what I own, and then I listen to them. And for many of them, I'm listening to them. Preparing for this stream is what gets me to listen to some of the records that I haven't listened to in a long time. And it's a great confirmation because then I can think to myself, yeah, I still really I'm glad I have this in my collection. Anyway, this one here, this is Songs for Drella, Lou Reed and John Cale. They got back together.
Like OMD. I thought it was OMD for a while.
They got back together, put aside their differences, and they did this homage to the Factory. Oh, I'm having a senior moment. Andy Warhol. So because that's who Drella is, and I did not know this until Steve Carlson mentioned this. But if I hold this just right, you can see there's Andy in between the two of them.
Yeah, someone closing his eyes.
Yeah, and it's all done with dots, like a halftone, and so you've got that halftone that is put across here, and yeah, I had no idea that was on the album until Steve Carlson mentioned it in one of his videos. I'm gonna be listening to this today after we're done with this stream because I do really want to listen to it again.
Like they called an Easter egg.
Yeah, very much so. I tried to see if they had something else on the backside, and they don't. But yes, it's. I remember while it's been probably more than a year since I listened to it, because it took me a while to find it. This was it was released in 1990, but I don't think there were very many reissues of it until Record Store Day. And so this is a Record Store Day reissue, of this album. And I missed it when it was out in Record Store Day. But I happened to see it in one of those leftover bins in a store, so I could pick it up. And I remember it being really good. So I just need to listen to it again and give it a few spins today, which I definitely will be doing. That was definitely the two of them. That was a bit of a contentious relationship. I don't know if John Cale hated Lou Reed, but Lou Reed really, really had a strong dislike for John Cale. That's my understanding. I may be completely off base with that.
Well, I can definitely say that I heard a bit more of Lou Reed than I heard of the other one.
All right. So, do you have anything else?
Yeah,
I'm out. That's it.
Yeah, so I can take my stuff and leave. No, and go through the rest of them, I guess.
Starting with for it. I'll check and see if I have any CDs of something.
Starting with a 7-inch. This is Swedish blues rock queen Louise Hofsten, and the single called Yeah Yeah. That, despite the title, is in Swedish, but this is a really awesome rock track, with blues rock track. It's definitely not ahead of its time, but it's so amazingly groovy because it has a horns that is blowing the head out of you, and it is such a fantastic rock groove, this one. So definitely something that I really liked back then, still do. I presented back in 1985 a favorite album of mine, Propaganda's A Secret Wish. That was produced by, or it was released by Trevor Horn, and it was unfortunately the only album that setting of Propaganda released. But in 1990, they returned all of a sudden with the album 1, 2, 3, 4. Although it was only one member left from the original, Mikael Mertens, and not with Claudia Brücken at vocal, it was Betsy Miller. Now, Claudia Brücken, of course, is a league of her own, but I think that Betsy Miller is an underrated singer. I think this isn't all that bad, even though it doesn't sound a bit like Secret Wish. It is definitely more commercial pop in this one. But they had some great success with Heaven Give Me Words, a really nice song. And I think this is a very underrated album. Secret Wish plays in her own league of its own, but this is actually a really, really great radio pop album. Nothing more, nothing less. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cassette with In Excess. And the album X. What I remember most is that I saw in Swedish television that year they were going to have an interview with Michael Hutchence, and the TV presenter, who obviously had no check on pop music, pronounced the band a little bit wrong. He said, and this is the singer Michael Hutchence, the singer of the Australian band Inks. I'm thinking, God, no. What is Inks? And he did it with a corny Swedish dialect also. But this is a really, really, I think this is my favorite. This is definitely my favorite In Excess album. It has some hits that
Interesting.
spawned over. It has hits that went over to 91. Like Disappear and By My Side. But the album and the single Suicide Blonde is really great. So in my opinion, this is In Excess best album by Inks. Now, for once, pick out the guitars. I'm no fan of blues, but this is really a great one. Wouldn't be 1990 without Gary Moore Still Got the Blues.
Ah, yes.
A classic from that year, and the title track is definitely Childhood Memories. It was a huge hit here in Sweden. Soul. This was a soul album that this is a soul album that I really think is great. I think it's one of my absolute favorites by the singer. Maybe it's also because it has a lot of amazing of the producers, the creme de la creme of a producing of soul. Whitney Houston's I'm Your Baby Tonight, which has producers like L.A. Reid and Babyface, Narada Michael Walden, Luther Vandross, Stevie Wonder, Michael Masser. And it is really, really great. I think this is was a sadly forgotten Whitney Houston album. Maybe because it wasn't original. It was Yours Everyday American Soul album. But to me, this is Whitney Houston's best album, actually. This is an album that when I bought it, I bought it a little risk taking because I actually it could be good, it could be bad, but I heard some songs from the album, but I wasn't sure if it was good or not. But I took a chance of Dave Stewart and the Spiritual Cowboys debut album, and it proved to be a whole lot better than I could expect. It was actually really, really good. Not only the single Jack talking that I heard before that I liked before, but the entire album was way better than I could imagine, actually. Only a few left. Beats International. which was the band that Fatboy Slim, aka Norman Cook from previous House Martins, had before he became Fatboy Slim. Had a big hit with "Dub Be Good to Me." The album is not going to say that it's just as perfect as when he was Fatboy Slim, but you can definitely hear what he would become in the later part of the 90s, and it's really a great album. This is an artist I showed back in 1989, last year I think, and she released an album this year also, Jane Wiedlin, and the album Tangled from 1990. Also a really, really great one. Definitely underrated and sadly forgotten. Fleetwood Mac. The Mac Fleetwood Orchestra. And the album Behind the Mask. Also an album that is a lot better than it's getting credit for. Of course, it's no Rumor, it's no Tango in the Night, but still it's a really, really great one. It's music by these guys for the love of God. And I have 3 dance records left. First, Soul to Soul, also shown in 1989. This is to follow up A New Decade that consists some really, really great stuff here, like Get a Life, that I think is a really, really great song. Dreams a Dream, also a fantastic song. So Jesse B continued to deliver with some really, really great soulish dance tracks.
What label is that on?
10 Virgin, sub-label 10 Records.
Okay.
And I think that Jesse B also is a little bit involved in this, the Chimes, that had some success with their cover of U2's I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. That Bono himself said back then that it was one of his absolute favorite songs. He really liked that song. But the entire album is really great. The single Heaven is really, really great. So really groovy, nice groovy soul dance album. And finally, more from Britain, but in a whole different style, dance-wise. This is Blue Pearl. That was this woman. And she was the front person anyway behind it. The album Naked, they had a huge hit back in 1990 with Naked in the Rain. That was such an amazing, groovy, and very, very mysterious and heavy beat things. But also like the song Little Brother, also really great one. This is such a really great, relaxing and great house dance style. So that was 1990.
I'll have to keep my eye out for some of these because I do like house music, and it's difficult because I find some compilations, and I'm not always happy with them, with the particular mixes, whether it's vinyl or whether it's on CD. So sometimes looking for the singles, that I hear on compilations that are really good, looking for those, because all my stuff, all my house music, all my trance music pretty much is on CD, and pretty much represents the era of 1994 up to about 2000 and maybe 2004.
It's interesting how things change actually, because back when it comes to house music from 1988, 89, 90, 91, I think is really, really awesome. I love house music acid house back then.
Yes.
When it comes to house music from 2022, I'm totally uninterested in it. So
the lately what I've been, and I don't go to the clubs anymore, but there are occasions when, I'll have a visitor come into Chicago, and and I live close to Boys Town, where all the gay bars are, where the ones that have been there since like the 80s, they're all still there. And so they want to go and they want to check it out. So I'll go with them. And yeah, lately, a lot of what I've been listening to is like, but in listening and conversing with Stunty, I am going backwards a little more and investigating, pre-1990 Acid House. And I have picked up some very interesting and cool records on vinyl, based on, some of his, not necessarily based on his recommendations, but based on his influence that led me to go to a store that specializes in DJ mixes and dance music and start digging and looking for stuff.
What I think that house music today lacks of that it had back then was it's a groove. It has such an amazing groove and beat back then, and it lacks of it totally. Today it's just some kind of a sound explosion of. And of course, you got to have those drops that I really am so fed up with drops in song melodies that I will. When they all of a sudden have some nice melody for once, and then all of a sudden they stop and they're going to have an instrumental drop in the middle of everything that destroys the entire song without having a great refrain all of a sudden. I
like the way, particularly in the 90s and to a degree in the early 2000s, that in some of my preferences in house music may be a little more pedestrian, in that I really like the way some mixes were created by taking a big hit, a radio hit, maybe it was a Beyonce song, like the song Ring the Alarm, and then the mixes, the house mixes that came from that, sampling that song, or even using that song, but adding all the other, stuff to it. I love those.
It was pretty funny because a couple of years ago, I heard when they have taken Rihanna and Eminem, they did a song together. I don't remember today which song it is because neither of them are artists that I will listen to freely. But all of a sudden, they had taken those and made a Eurodance version. Someone on YouTube had made a Eurodance version of those two, the song by those two. And I wrote as a comment to that guy who had done it, I said that I never heard Eminem sounding that this good. And it wasn't even it wasn't even him that had anything to do with Eminem.
Right. Yeah, a lot of what I have from that era is exactly that, where it took a pop song that was on the radio. Now Beyonce is not a good example because I like a lot of her material anyway. But, other bands, boy bands that I really had no interest in, but the house dance mixes that were created from their songs are just killer. I love them. But yeah.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago, I heard of someone who had mixed a Boyzone song. I hate Boyzone. I think they're totally overrated, uninteresting band. But someone had done a great dance mix that was actually really good.
Yep, there's some.
I'm going to do a response also. Ed Topa asked me about the first Brand New Heavies songs. I was looking in I have a lot of Brand New Heavies. I was looking in my collection and trying to find it, but I didn't find it, so I don't think I have that one. But it will be Brand New Heavies as we march forward in 90s. Of course, it will be. I love Brand New Heavies.
Well, I got two more CDs that were released in 1990. One, I'm not so sure I'm going to try and get a vinyl copy of it because the way the CD is organized, it would probably end up being one of those records. Plus, it's all completely digital sourced. And the other one, though, is one that I will want to try and find a vinyl version of it. The one that I'm satisfied with the CD is Neil Young, Ragged Glory. I'm not sure if this was the first one. I don't think this is the first one but the second one he did after he got out of Geffen Records, um, and got back with Crazy Horse. Oh shit, what was the name of the one before this? Can't remember. But of course, you see now, and you can tell from my other ones that I showed, like Sonic Youth, and others. I like guitars. I like noisy, distorted, fuzzed up guitars. And Neil Young and with Crazy Horse, is really a killer one. And I still listen to this frequently. I mean, I'm always listening to, Fucking Up and Country Home and Mansion on the Hill, and Farmer John is such a stupid, simple song, but it's great. This is the one that I'm looking for a vinyl release, Iggy Pop, Brick by Brick. This was another one that when I saw it being promoted or talked about on the show 120 Minutes, because of the song he does, I think it's with Kate Pearson, Candy. Yeah, the song Candy. It's a little more poppy, but it's not as pop or to me, it was a good comeback for Iggy.
Is that the album containing Living on the Edge of the Night?
No.
Because I think that was a single 1990 early.
Okay. But there are great songs on here. And he's also got some other great musicians playing with him on here. And it's just a really super nice, strong. It's a strong album. It's not as strong as maybe boy, I'm having these senior moments here and drawing blanks when I'm in the records.
Wild.
But the one after The Idiot, Lust for Life, not quite as strong as that particular period for Iggy. He had a string of albums that were pretty good, but not quite up to what he had been historically doing. And to me, this is a comeback. This is where he really, comes back with some great songs, some great arrangements, and it is one of my among my favorite Iggy Pop records. So, all right, yeah, that's it. I thank you very much, Jorgen, for joining today, and always great music and interesting music and music I haven't heard of that I will check out and investigate. So
it's interesting how we're two totally different. One is commercial and the other one isn't.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. If I can get you to, maybe you won't enjoy the Black Crowes or give a deep listen to the Black Crowes or, Sonic Youth or the Breeders, but maybe check them out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so remember, as it says down at the bottom of the screen, you can find me on Instagram at newsdude76. You can see that's NEWZDUDE 76 on Instagram, where I post things on occasion. And I'll see you. The next episode will be up to 1991. So I got some, more good releases.
I'm just also going to say that the closer and more into the 90s become the lesser album I have. But
yeah, it's I've got quite a few 90s records, but not very many in like a single year.
I have a lot of 90s, but when we're coming to 97, 98, 99, it's going to be a problem because those years, I almost gave up on pop music.
Yeah, well, when we hit one of those lean years, I may tinker with the theme a little bit to maybe combine years, because I know that if someone like you shows up, or someone like Stunty shows up, or others who will join, I know you have lots of records, more than I do. So if I can come up with like 5 or 6, then I'm all right. But if I only find I only have 1 or 2, that's when I'm going to start thinking, well, maybe we'll combine years, or
It's
maybe
fun when
we'll just bail on the 90s altogether.
fun when the couple shows records and the host is sitting
Yeah. Well,
twiddling his thumbs.
being a moderator, and a host and not really doing anything, that's okay. Having somebody on the panel not really doing anything is a little more problematic.
Mazzy Star is, if I'm not wrong, is a dance artist. I think I have one single by her. So now I mentioned her, Bodo.
I have a lot of Willie Cologne, but none from 1990. I don't think. I think all mine are from before 1990. And Mazzy Star, I know about Mazzy Star, but I don't have any Mazzy Star, and I'm really unfamiliar with them. I know of them, but that's it. I could name a single song. But Brand New Heavies, I think I might have a friend of mine, I think, burned a CD of their songs for me. And I think I have that. And I know about them. But really,
There will be more acid jazz in the 90s later on.
yeah. All right. So take care, everyone. Thank you very much for being here and supporting. Thank you, Jorgen. And always remember, folks, to pray for the people inside your head.